3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Welcome to Mission CTRL, Peralta Design's podcast on all things branding and digital marketing. Since 2008, Peralta Design has launched hundreds of brands with award-winning identities and websites. Join our hosts Ramon and Jorge as they use decades of combined experience to tackle topics with past clients, industry partners, and the rest of the PD crew. At Peralta Design, we launch brands. But for now, let's launch right into this episode of Mission CTRL.
Hey everybody, welcome to Mission CTRL, Peralta Design's official podcast of everything branding, marketing, and entrepreneurship, where we respect the grind and reclaim the American dream. I am your host, Ramon Peralta from Peralta Design, and we launch brands. Today I'm very, very excited to have a dear friend, mentor, fraternity brother from another mother. We won't hold it against him that he's a Cowboys fan, but this man is very inspirational, and I've known him for a very long time. Help me in welcoming Mr. Attorney James Walker. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ramon. Glad to be on the show, man. I'm so proud of you, man, what you've built for. I can't tell you enough, man. The feelings are mutual. You've been to my home to speak to my kids.
Yes.
I really appreciate you in so many.
Yes, man. Listen, and the feeling's mutual, man. I think we have a mutual admiration and respect, and over the years, we've helped each other. And so I'm honored that you made the time in your busy schedule to be with us. And you know, our audience is entrepreneurs. They're people that look like us, and they're trying to build businesses. And I think it's important. And I know you believe the same thing, that you know, we're here. We've been graced and blessed with favor, and so we want to pay it forward. And maybe there's something that you'll share today that can really help somebody out there that's trying to build something great and help people on their own. So,
No, I'm honored. I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years, so any tips I can tell you from my failures to my successes, I hope it inspires somebody, particularly people who look like you and me.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's give us your backstory. Tell us a little bit about, you know, where you came from and what were some of the foundations maybe that became your why as to what it is that you do today.
I'm from Bridgeport, Connecticut, where, you know, I met you at the University of Bridgeport, where I was getting my master's, and I think you were finishing up your undergrad degree at the time. But I grew up in Bridgeport, lived in the P.T. Barnum housing project. And then we moved out. We actually got burglarized in PT. To this day, I never forget what that feels like. We came home, I was about 8 or 9 years old. They had stolen our TV, went through our refrigerator. That was the biggest violation, that they just went in our refrigerator. My mother said, somebody we knew. But that, growing up in PT, and just seeing a lot of friends struggle sometimes, get in a little trouble with the law. You know, we were all knuckleheads. I remember getting arrested as a teenager. Out here doing some stupid stuff, buying hot property, just didn't know any better. Always knew I wanted to go to school, go to college, but just in Bridgeport, you just stumble into trouble. And my single mom just sent me off to my uncle to work in construction. And that was the best wake up as a 15. I was out there 6 a.m., 6 p.m. every day with him, showing up at a housing project in New York, Soundview, South Bronx, Martin Luther King projects. I can name all the projects around Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens. We did all the boroughs. Brown windows with the shower bars and the skyscrapers. Those are probably my uncle who did the windows, me and my cousins. So I was 15. My uncle just started drilling me like, you have something special, Uncle Bill, to go to college, playing around with me, getting in trouble. And I got in trouble for buying a stolen moped. And I knew it was stolen. The guy sold it to me for like $50. And this was a brand spanking new moped, like straight out the shop. But I bought it, was dumb, ran a red light in Westport, Connecticut. Cops pulled me over. Me and my cousin took us straight to jail. And I remember my mother said, I'm going to leave you in there overnight. Just a lesson. Came and got us. And I'm in there screaming, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, this is injustice. And my cousin is like, look around. It's like 8 white guys and us. And this is before, you know, Rodney King and all stuff we all know today and Black Lives Matter. This is the 80s, man. Mm-hmm. So got out of that, I had to go to court, I showed the judge, I went back and got the guy to sign a paper to say he sold it. Took that to court, judge dismisses the case. My uncle takes me to the courthouse, straight to the person, working his business. We're doing project Jersey, New York that summer. And I worked for him 3 or 4 summers, even while I was an undergrad at Howard. And that catapulted into me meeting Diddy, meeting Frank Love, meeting Ron Berry, all these promoter types, guys who were on our campus who were doing concerts, plays. And I just fell in that lane. Just from working for my uncle, I always knew how to manage people, how to count money. And I started making $5,000, $10,000 a weekend as an 18, 19-year-old in college. Wow. Which at that time, it was like, $5,000, you know, we're older now, you know, we spend $5,000 in minutes in an office. But back then, it was, man, I'm paying for school. I'm a single mom baby. I'm trying to pay for Howard. I rented a house, paid for Howard, and the rest is history. I did so many shows that Phyllis Hyman, the former jazz artist, rest in peace, she suggested to me that I consider it. And that's how I heard about it in 1990. I never heard the term before. I thought I'd be a civil rights guy. And Phyllis Hyman said, you might want to look at it. And I asked her, well, what is that? Like singing as a lawyer, dancing? And she said, no, it's on my contract. You would do the entertainer's contracts. I was like, oh. And I went to school already promoting Kirk Franklin, promoting plays. Oh, do you love a black woman? And, you know, you got that whole thing. I did a ton of those, too many to name, while I was in law school. When I came out of law school, I went to a big firm in Hartford and worked there 2 years and then launched my firm in 98. And I haven't worked for nobody since 98.
Wow.
Entrepreneur since 98. Started in my basement of my house in Hartford.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there, because do you think if you hadn't gone to Howard that you perhaps would not have gotten into entertainment law? Like first of all, your uncle basically saved your life. You could argue. I mean, because your life could have gone I grew up in Providence, very similar to Bridgeport, and in that moment that you found yourself in, those are those moments where like your life can go one of two ways. And working with your uncle made an impact. And then go back to Howard there. Why did you select Howard? Was it somebody in high school told you to go there, or?
I had a cousin named Phyllis who was 5, 6 years older than me, and she went there in the 80s. Okay. I had heard a little bit about her. We weren't close cousins. She lived in Norfolk, Virginia, but she was one of the first in our family to go away from college. My mother's cousin. Her mom and my mother's mom were sisters. So she was really like a second cousin because she was my mother's cousin. But I had heard about Phyllis going there. And then at Bassett High School, Mr. Joynes, Mr. Brennan, the guidance counselors, they kept saying, you know, look at Howard. It's a great school. It's the Black Harvard, whatever that means. And I was like, okay. And I looked at UB, I looked at UConn, but I don't think UB or UConn could have given me the full substance that Howard gave. I think I would have got good education, but I think just being an African-American man from the projects, from Bridgeport, from Stratford Avenue, we moved to later, I don't think I would have got around the same kind of people as you. Yeah. Just a different group, you know? Mm-hmm. And you look at what those people are doing now, from Diddy to Charles King to Raji to Anthony Anderson, Matt Middleton, so many great people that came out of the Howard circle. And I'm just naming a handful. Right. My uncle definitely saved my life and made sure I got back on the right track. And I don't say thank you enough to him. So I want to say in this interview to my Uncle Bill, you know, really, really thank you, because he took me from the courthouse, put me in his truck, and we drove straight to Jersey. Yeah. Like the lawyers had already said, things will be dismissed. I walked in, said what I had to say to the judge, it was dismissed, and we were gone. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I also think that your uncle, I would argue that he planted a seed of entrepreneurship in you, because, you know, whether you realize it or not, you went to work for him. It was his business, you know, and you saw his operation and you got to work in it. And those kind of moments inspire you, because even though you didn't go into the window business, it gave you the vision of having a business, because your uncle had a business.
That, and he would have me supervising grown men. So the way it worked is I left Bridgeport at night one summer, I recall, and I drove to the Soundview project. My job was to take the windows off the truck and get the windows planted on 10th floor. Think you're in a skyscraper, 10th floor? My job was to spend all night from like 12 to 1 a.m. unloading the truck, and then from 1 a.m. to 5 or 6, get these windows up in the building on every floor with a crew of 7 or 8 guys. That's work. And people are out there dealing drugs, you're seeing crack files on the ground, but nobody bothers you. They know, look, he's here to do his job. He's got a team. leave them alone. So we never had any problems with the people in the building. So my job was to get that done, and then the laborers showed up at 7 a.m. to rip out the old windows.
Mm-hmm.
Ripped out the old ones, we got the new ones there, and then the mechanics showed up at 10 o'clock to put in the actual window that we unloaded earlier that morning.
Mm-hmm.
That was the system. And that taught me how to supervise men. You got to get 25, 30 windows in a day to pay everybody and make a little profit. You got to feed the men lunch. You got to keep up morale. All these principles and tenets, for those listening, it applies to any kind of business you run.
Absolutely.
Teamwork, morale, gifts, lunch, bonuses, that a boy. You know, I have to walk around every now and then and say, hey, that a boy, we're doing a good job. You know? And my cousins were kind of working under me. My cousin Willie, my cousin Fred, I was kind of their supervisor as a teenager because I was the older one, and Bill knew I was the first nephew to come work for him. So I had to kind of keep everybody in shape. And that was hard because these are guys that are like the same age as you. You know what I mean? Or a year apart. And they're looking like, oh, now he's our boss? You know, imagine you and your line brother from the fraternity, you're his supervisor at a job. It's hard to delineate that, but we got the work done. And I think that's where I learned just kind of how to manage people, what mistakes, what not.
Yeah. Now, before well, first of all, when you mentioned Diddy, it reminded me that it was during that same time period that he had a concert where there were some people that had died. It was at a college. Was that college. What? It was at City College? Mm-hmm. Right. I remember that. That was in the 90s, I think.
I was in the 90s, and he and I, we were pretty cool in undergrad. I remember praying with him over that incident. Mm-hmm. We were worried, you know, that he might go to jail. It was him and Heavy D. They gave a party. Yep. And this would happen at Howard often. When I gave a party, I would have fraternity brothers, security from the door of the building all the way out to the street so nobody could get up to the door. Nobody could just bum rush the door. Mm. He was so popular, even as a student, when he would give his parties, no one would think of the security detail, and people would just bum rush the doors. Because his parties were always going to have Father MC, Mary J. Blige, all these acts that he was interning with at Uptown. They're coming down to Howard to perform for different events because he was plugged in. But if you're going to do that, you got to think, okay, 1,000 people first hour. We got to have more than my roommate on the front door. I can't have Ramon and Nancy working the front door as family. I got to have real, you know, enforcers to tell people to stay in the street, don't come up to the door. So Puff constantly had those kind of events. Like, you had a lot of fun, but there was always a little pandemonium at the door just because of organization.
Yeah.
Now, I remember praying with him over that City College day, make sure he didn't go, you know, because he always knew I prayed. I went to church every Sunday. I always made it clear to him, Frank Love, all the guys, look, I don't drink, I don't smoke. I'm just in this to pay for my college.
Yeah, I think that's something I want to touch on too, because you, somewhere along the way, you also got a divinity degree.
Right.
Was that after Connecticut Post? Because you and I worked at Connecticut Post. Actually, I want to say thank you to you on the air, because you're the one that gave me the inside scoop that there was a position opening, you know, with Kevin Thompson in the illustrator position. And I didn't get the job, but I went after a different job. And that's a whole podcast in itself, but you got me in the building. But you were an investigative reporter. You were doing entertainment promotions in college. At some point, yeah, I know you're a man of God. At some point, you were inspired to pursue a divinity degree as well?
Yeah, I worked with a lot of churches. I volunteered in different churches, worked with ministerial staffs, worked with the senior citizens ministry, worked with the youth group, teach Bible study, attended Bible study, and I just wanted a deeper understanding. So in 1999, 4 years into practicing law, I went in 1999 and enrolled at Yale part-time. It took me 4 years to get a master's from that, class of 2003. And it was just a deeper understanding of the word. You know, I was opening a halfway house shortly after that, and I was teaching Bible studies at the halfway house, and it just really helped me. I call it the best degree I got of the three, because I make money with the law. I do media with my journalism undergrad degree, but with the divinity degree, I just sat in class all day reading the Bible and understanding the Word of God, the mysteries of God, understanding New Testament, understanding what we call the synoptical gospels, when you look at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and how they intertwine with each other, the birth of Jesus and the different things in each one. that for me, I had never done in regular school. I just really enjoyed going through divinity school. And I feel like raising 4 kids, I didn't get all that I probably would have got being so busy. I missed out on just some of the hanging on campus, talking to some of the great theological minds. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad I got the experience, and I'm grateful to Yale, even though I wrote an article recently kind of asking Yale to do more for Blacks. The president hit me up about that. But I'm really grateful for that degree.
Now, how much of this was by design and how much of this is just you listening to God or the universe kind of making things happen? Because I'm just going to assume that having a divinity degree and then being an entertainment lawyer helps you represent gospel artists. And how much of that did you design that to be that way, or were you driven by some other force that was kind of guiding you this way?
I think it's a little bit of both, but I think it was driven by divine force in that you have to give God his time. If you're a man or woman of faith, I see a lot of us that we're climbing that corporate ladder, and it's just all about getting that next degree or that next title, or I want to be senior VP, or I want to be CEO. And then you say, well, when do you pray? When do you fast? When do you really spend time with you and God so you can hear his direction for your life? And sometimes God will keep it from something that looks like a great door, and then God will shut it. And then later down the line, Ramon sees that company went bankrupt and they wouldn't have paid him. But you were pitching them hard on, yo, I want to do business. I want to do business. Come on, let's play golf. Let's do some business. And then down the line, you find out God kept you away from something. Now, on a lighter note, he can't seem to keep me away from these cowboys. God can deliver me. And I would really be grateful, because it's like the girlfriend that you just can't let go and she keeps breaking your heart. So that would be my answer, that it's really divine God. And it definitely helps when you represent pastors and gospel artists that they know you have a deeper understanding of things with regards to faith.
Yeah. Now, you had a practice here in Connecticut. You mentioned Hartford. You give back tremendously. You had the halfway house. How did that come about? Was it because you own real estate and you know it was already a halfway house, or were you always did you have a vision to open this to help the community?
Yeah. We had about 50 rentals in Connecticut from 2003, I think, to about 2013 for a 10-year run. Came here in 2011, and I still kept some of the rentals while I was here the first 2 years in Atlanta. A lady named Corinne Bonner was running a female house called the Judy, and she saw I had over 30 apartments in Hartford, and one day she just said, hey, we could take one of your buildings. I know you like to speak to men, you like to give back. We could turn 93 Blue Hills into a halfway house. And we could do 8 beds, and we could put 8 rooms, and we could put 2 men in each room. So I followed her lead. I got certified by the state of Connecticut. We set up the nonprofit 501c3 called the Joshua House, and we probably serviced about 200 to 300 men. I'm still close friends with a lot of those men on Facebook. And they still inbox me every holiday and say, hey, I know you had to move south and you didn't keep this going like you wanted to, but we thank you for the 5 years that we had it. It meant a lot to me. You touch one, I feel like it was worth it. The struggle I ran into, Ramon, is I lived in Monroe and the halfway house was in Hartford. And I just couldn't be there every day. And if you're doing something that intense, you kind of got to be with the men more than one day a week. Trying to raise 4 kids, sports with kids, law practice, and manage the properties. I was pulled very, very tight, or what they say, very hard, different ways.
You were spread thin.
Yeah, I was spread thin, thank you. And I think that would be my tip to entrepreneurs listening, that as you get success, so many things come your way, and so many people come to you with great ideas. You're making great money, you got a great situation, people know Ramon's hardworking and smart, so people throw great concepts in front of you all the time, and you got to really slow down and say, can I really do this? I got a wife, kids, practice, kids are active in sports. Can I commit to a halfway or to whatever? And I think there was a little naivete in my heart as to how much work it would take together. When you're that compassionate, now if you're just a guy writing a check, that's easy. But guys like you and me, we want to know these brothers. We want to be there on the front line. How you doing today, sir? What you working on? Oh, let's drive over here and get you a job. Hey, did you get your high school diploma yet? All right, I need you to call Ramon. Ramon's going to tell you to do that. Hey, you got a job? All right, call Peralta Design. They're going to find you an internship. that's kind of hands-on how we are and how I am. So when you sign into these things, you got to be really clear that you got the time. Sidebar, I just connected with Making Away Housing here in Atlanta. And the video you saw from our Christmas event a couple weeks ago has a pitch in there and a commercial in it for Making Away Housing. That we're trying to help them raise money. And I want to take the efforts I had in Hartford and plug into them here. They have 108 beds. They've been doing it for 10 years. And it's a really, really nice facility run by a lady named Dr. Elizabeth Thompson. So I'm going to get to do that work that I wanted to do in Hartford, but the infrastructure is already in place, so I won't spread myself too thin again.
Yeah, excellent, man. Now, speaking of spreading yourself thin, somehow in the midst of all this, you're raising 4 kids, building a law practice, running a halfway house, you managed to write a book.
Oh, thank you, guys.
So, this business of urban music. Tell us a bit about what inspired the book and the process of just juggling it all and finding the time to write a book.
Thank you for mentioning the book. It's dear to my heart. I had a mentor, rest in peace, named William Krasilowski, Bill Krasilowski. And Bill represented Duke Ellington and the estate of Fats Domino.
Wow.
Charles type. I mean, he was that dude in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And I met Bill in law school. I came to New York for what's called a moot court competition, like our in-court debating other teams from other colleges. And I met Bill on a trip to New York, and he asked me to spell the word synchronization. And I spelled it. He said, sit down. And he was an older Jewish guy, probably 70 years old at that time. He said, what do you know about it? And I started, I've done this, I've done contract. And Bill wrote the first book that's a bestseller in his 10th edition now called This Business of Music. And Bill was so, honored and respected me so much, he gave me the leeway to Random House and connected me, asked them to let me write that spinoff book that you're holding, This Business of Urban Music. My book's a little different than Bill's. We've been #1 in the urban space for years with that book. We talk conversation. I'm going to tell you how I did deals with Kirk Franklin, Durkins, DMX, whoever. My book is a fun read. It's not legalese, technical. It's very stories in there about Tupac, stories about Tony Braxton, Kirk Franklin, Bobby Jones, whoever. I wrote the book to try to help the urban artists. If you just Google the book on Twitter, you'll see 100 comments of people reading the book all over the world. We sold probably 10 or 20,000 copies when I checked a couple years ago, which is phenomenal for a niche book like that. It's a real niche book that, you're not going to get mainstream, but you're going to get the mainstream enthusiasts. So my aspiration was just, Bill said do it, and I looked up to Bill. I thought he was the man. Yeah. I thought he had a 67-year career as an entertainment lawyer that made him, a legend. And for a while, his book was the only book out that we all used in law schools. We used as lawyers, practitioners. Now my book is being used in classrooms. I had a call last month with Bowie State. They're using my book in their entertainment law class. And that really did me.
That's amazing. And I think it's so important for the community to have a resource like this, because a lot of them, for many of them, I should say, it's like, I'm going to be a rapper, I'm going to be a singer, I'm going to be an athlete, but usually there's, the community has all these creative folks, and they run the risk of being exploited if they're not aware of how to protect their music or own the rights to their music. Sure. Is that something like, have there been some horror stories of some artists that are well known that, died and didn't have any ownership of their own music?
Oh, there's been a lot of horror stories. When you watch the best-selling movie for Lifetime this year was the Clark Sisters movie. My client, Twinkie Clark, and her famous sisters known as the Clark Sisters. They were the first to start the 4 sisters that everybody uses now, before Beyonce and them, before En Vogue, before Escape with Candy Burris. The Clark Sisters were the icons. And if you watch the movie, Twinkie gave away all her rights in the 80s. Now, the good news for Twinkie's stories, we went back in and got her rights back. But in a lot of cases, these artists do unfortunately pass away and their copyright is assigned. One of the cases I settled this week that we haven't made the announcement on was involving the top songwriter suing well-known R&B artists who had taken off, basically, not paid it. So we deal with it all the time. And that's why I wrote the book. And it's funny you mentioned a book and people reading. I have a rap client named K Camp, one of my favorite clients. He has a song out, Lottery, Renegade, where all the kids are doing the little TikTok thing. He's here in Atlanta. And the way we became close, Ramon, his mother invited me to dinner with him. His mother's Mama Camp. About our age, when she goes by Mama Camp. And she told me, she said, I hope one day you and my son can get close, like almost a mentor figure to him. He came to dinner, came a little late. I was a little, hey man, I've been here an hour, I don't need this. And then I said, I thought to God, I said, what do I do? I opened my book up and I started showing him the pages on how to read a book. Read a producer. What is a producer? How much do you make off an album when it sells $9.99? And I marked all the pages. There's a chapter in there on how much money Michael Jackson made off the record. I marked that page. There's a chapter in there called Beauty versus the Lock. Getting publishing back. I marked that chapter. The dude went home and said he sat in his bathroom on his toilet and read the book. I couldn't put it. And from that point on, he said, I've been in this industry 10 to 20 years. And nobody has given me this. I've signed tons of agreements. I've sold millions of records. And we've been like this ever since. He's more like a little brother, almost a son to me, than he is a client. I didn't know the magnitude of the TikTok thing. I had to Google and see, like, everybody is doing this renegade dance to his lottery song. So we've closed several deals for him now. He's just a great guy, but it started with giving him that book dinner one night and turning it into pages. And I said, look, I'm not here to sell you. If you don't ever hire me again, just take this book and read it. And he actually moved and called me. I never knew what a royalty fund was. I never do this, I never do that. So when that happens to you, that makes that whole book.
Right.
You get a client like that, or just an artist like that.
Absolutely, man. And I know you were involved in a case. I don't know how. I know it was out. I read an article on it, so perhaps you can share. But it had to do with a compilation CD of a lot of different gospel artists. There were a lot of these compilation CDs where I guess the companies that were producing the CDs were just taking the songs, putting them together, and then selling them as a bundle. But the artists weren't getting paid individually. Is that kind of what happened? And they hired you?
Let me give it in 10 seconds or less. There are these popular gospel albums called Wow albums. They are the best-selling albums every year in the gospel music, hands down. It's as if somebody took all your favorite rap songs or jazz songs, or in this case, gospel songs, and put them on one CD and they sell it. Mm-hmm. Everybody's going to buy it because it's got 20 hits. Mm-hmm. Everybody buys the song. And what I found out is the songwriters were being paid. Okay. They were being paid like half rate. They were being told, oh, this is good marketing for you. It's good promotion. Ramon, you should just be happy to be on this TV show because we're promoting your brand. Even though the show is selling out through the network, you should just be happy. And my argument was, well, you don't have a show without, or in this case, you don't have a show without my songwriters and the artists. Right. So what we were doing is we were making the labels pay every artist $90. And the labels only wanted to pay them $50. So when you do 90,000 times 20 artists on a record, that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So what the labels allegedly, I'll say allegedly because they'll still deny it to this day, they started telling the artists not to use us. And we found wind of it. We subpoenaed documents. We saw emails. We deposed people. We did 40 depositions. Wow. And then at the end of the day, about 5 or 6 years ago, they settled. And it changed my whole career. Wow. Nobody had ever fight like that, pretty much won. When you settle, to me, you won. I can't disclose terms and all that, but it let the industry know that we're not afraid to fight.
Right, man. That is, it's an incredible kind of just an example of a case study of you're fighting for rights, but people kind of think the average person doesn't really see rights in music. They see rights as music as entertainment.
They don't see civil rights.
Right, but there is rights to the creativity of the ownership because people are making money off of it. So, you can exploit. You're taking something that essentially doesn't belong to you and making money with it, and you're out there fighting so that the people that created it can get what's due to them.
This pie has been diced up in a way where a label gets 80% and the artist Ramon gets 10 or 20%.
That doesn't even
Ramon pay his lawyer, his manager, his brother, his road manager, his publicist, all these people out of his 15, 20%. Yeah. While the label says, hey man, that's not our problem.
Right.
We take it 80%. And if Ramon spent $2 million to make the album, they're not gonna give you a dime until you recoup that $2 million in your column. Right. If your rate is 25 cents a record, and you sell 1 million records, and you think, oh man, I got $2 million. You know, no, you don't. You owe us $2 million. And you're saying, well, wait, we sold 2 million records at $10 a pop. That's $20 million. Yeah, but we charge the budget out of your royalty, not out of the 20. It's the most creative Wall Street math ever.
To their advantage, though, not to the artist's advantage.
Right, not to the artist's advantage, to whoever created it in the music industry back in the 50s and 60s. I want to encourage anybody trying to be a music entrepreneur, watch the Quincy Jones documentary and watch the Black Gospel.
Yes, I watched both of those. Excellent.
I watch them when I'm having a down day or a slow day here. I just pop one of those on in my big screen in here and just let it play. Something comes in my head that I didn't hear the last time I watched it 10 times. Every time, because I'm working and I'm listening, and you'll hear Quincy say, yeah, man, back in the 50s, you know, Jackie Wilson was trying to renew his contract, and I heard him being shaken outside a window, and I said, what's going on? They said, oh, Jackie's upstairs trying to renew his. You know, you hear stuff like that. But that's what went on in our industry, and I know, you know, there's not many of the labels that maybe like what I do. They respect, but they don't necessarily like us, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. That's okay as long as our artists are eating.
Yeah, I do want to just point out that in both of those documentaries, the idea that they were influential mentors for these men along the way. They didn't do it on their own, and I think you and I share that for trying to do that for others, for that next generation. What do you think's the biggest thing that's changed with the fact that the industry now, you can self-publish, you have these social platforms, you have YouTube, you know, our phones and our computers can record pretty high quality. Compared to the olden days, I would say, when you literally had to go to a label and hope that they published you. What's the number one thing you can tell a modern day aspiring entertainer who thinks they can just self-publish to make sure that they're protected?
Well, first of all, register all your copyrights, register all your trademarks, make sure you own all of that right out the gate. The second thing is understand you don't need a record label anymore, but you do need somebody to do marketing. Mm-hmm. Marketing is not your gift. Make sure you set aside a budget to break this great project. Because you and I both know people we see at local bars or local talent shows, and we say, man, she can really do it. I should hook her up with so-and-so. But they can't go anywhere without marketing. Mm-hmm. They're just going to be at that local bar forever.
Right.
So, or talent show. So I tell people, if you're going to go indie, you can get there right now through your Facebook page, through your IG page, through TikTok. People can see you, but then what?
Right.
You got to have a plan to say, okay, I'm going to market the southern region this way. I'm going to market Europe this way. I'm going to hit Africa this way. And that's where you got to have money for the expert.
Right.
They do.
That's great advice, that you don't necessarily need a record label anymore, but you still need the marketing. And that's something that I think entrepreneurs, whether they're in music or not, in any industry, one of the toughest lessons for entrepreneurs to learn is they can't do everything themselves, or they shouldn't do everything themselves. And there are things to leave experts for. So I want to get to your practice a bit. Tell us how did you end up in Atlanta? Because, you know, I know you as a Connecticut guy, Bridgeport guy, but now you're killing it down in Atlanta. What was that transition like, and why did you pick Atlanta?
Well, I came to Atlanta because I wanted my kids to get diversity. You know, and I know what it's like to have kids in Monroe and Shelton, Connecticut, and other suburbs that we both have been visiting to. Mm-hmm. But I felt Atlanta would give my children a really, really diverse city. So they went from 1% Black in Monroe to 99.9% Black or Latino in Atlanta. And I think it did a lot for JW3, my oldest son. Yeah. Coming through high school here those last couple of years. Of course, Zion and Jordan and Joy. But I think it really helped well-rounded, you know? They're well-rounded. So I think that I made the good move for them, and it's just kind of fallen into place for the practice. I didn't know Atlanta was the mecca for entertainment. I had no clue what's going down here in entertainment. No clue at all. It just surprised me. I mean, I'm a mile from Tyler Perry's studio, literally. Been there a couple times for different events, and people take there all the time. But this man built a Hollywood studio here in East Point, and I'm about a mile or two from it. I didn't even know it was that close to me because there's so much great stuff going on in Atlanta that you kind of miss it sometimes in your little bubble. But Atlanta, for the practice, man, 12 people working here, probably 40 lawyers on co-counsel around the country with us, partnering with us. It's just been a blessing.
Yeah.
And you know what, Ramon, I want to say this to people who think about coming to Atlanta or other places. For guys like you and me, Ramon, in Connecticut, we have to show our business card, we have to show our degree, maybe our ID to say, yeah, I'm legit. These cards, I represent. Down here, you don't need that. The presumption is, James, you say Ramon's a good guy? We're going to try him out. Ramon, what's your retainer? Okay, we're sending it over now. Whereas in Connecticut, I found sometimes I could have 3, 4, 5 meetings and still not get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that it was just this bar after bar after bar after bar that you had to jump over. Whereas I came to Georgia and day one, I was advising Andrew Young on his 80th birthday. Like day one, our frat brother. Got here day one, and somebody was like, hey, we're putting together Andrew Young's birthday party. You want to be a part of it? Day one. And from that point on, I knew like Atlanta is different. And he gave me the best advice. He said, slow down, bring that New York, Connecticut energy here. Slow down and let the game come to you. People will see you thorough frat and work will come your way. Sometimes New Yorkers can come here and be, you know, I'm from New York, I'm the smartest guy, I'm the fastest guy, I'm from up north, y'all just dumb country folks down here. And he taught me like, just pace yourself.
Right.
Good word, and the word will get out in this town to hear that.
Yeah, amen, man. And I got a chance to meet Brother Young, just a legend, an amazing brother, and another alpha man. So we got to give our props to Alpha. And one thing I you know, over the years I've just really I can't emphasize enough the deep appreciation you have for family and how you've raised your kids and just how you've managed to stay humble through all of this, because you name drop a lot. You know, you do it on social, but you manage to like post, you know, how important it is to be a dad throughout all this. And I find it, at least from the outside looking in, like your focus on family really helps keep you humble, because you're you know, going back to Alpha, you know, we have that poem, can walk with kings and nor lose the common touch. And you've managed to do that. You know, what advice do you have for business owners that are listening, entrepreneurs that are listening, as they get their contracts, and that they start to feel like a little bit high and mighty, because you do not have that air. You take care of your family, you help others, you know, but yet you're dealing with some really high profile celebrities. What's the secret?
I think for me, getting in the game so young, first of all, I'm not impressed by K-Camp, Joseph, to Aretha, to whoever.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And some say, oh, name dropping. No, for me, they're just Ramon, John Smith, and Mary Jackson. You know, they're all the same with me. Nobody feels like I'm so-and-so. I'm just little old Ramon Peralta. I'm not that dude. In our house and in our practice, everybody's equal. You come to one of our Christmas parties, you could be standing next to a big R&B icon, a pro basketball player, a mayor, and a janitor, and a computer geek guy, all in the same kitchen, and everybody's getting loved on by our family. It isn't like, everybody clear out the way, this Ramon Peralta, everybody move, everybody just, all right, Ramon's gonna sit in that corner, put 3 people around him so nobody can get through him. You know what I mean? Like, you just don't, I've never been into that, because God is the king. God is the ruler of all rule. You know, he's at the head. Mm-hmm. So Tyler Perry, of course, I've met him a couple times. You know, it just, to me, he's Tyler Perry. I've known him since he was using one of my clients in his place 30 years ago at the Oakdale. Mm-hmm. When he was coming up 20, 30 years ago and doing plays at the Oakdale, right around the corner from my house in Washington. So for me, it's God, family, and your faith. God is first, then your family, then your faith. Whatever your faith is. I'm not saying you got to be a part of a church, you got to be this holy, pray 5 times a day guy or girl. But for me, it's God, family, and faith. And nowhere in that comes celebrity. Nowhere in that becomes self-important. Nowhere in that becomes, well, I represent myself. I had a friend yesterday, I hit her up with another friend on the text message introducing me, and she was like, you put my number on that? The protocol. You call me first. And I said, sweetheart, this lady's a millionaire over here. I'm trying to get her to send you some business. You worried about protocol? But that told me a lot about her and her ego.
Right.
That she was caught up on a 10-word text message. Hey, so-and-so, meet so-and-so. Y'all two should know each other. And she wrote me privately like a book on the protocol. First night to me. And I just kind of fell back and said, it ain't that deep. I'm just trying to connect good people. I'm the master connector. That's a gift that I do. Even with you in the post, trying to connect you and keep the post. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to let our light shine and let our light be a light for other people to get blessed. I like to say at Home to Zion, we're blessed to be a blessing. That's what I try to say. So you and I got these blessings. We're trying to use our buildings and our offices and our team to help everybody get a house. Everybody get a house. Everybody get a car. Just like when I see Tyler and Oprah blessing everybody, we want to be able to say that Peralta Design came as multi-million-dollar agency, so did some of the staffers. Went out on their own. And they started with you and went to New York and did something else. That for me is the proud feeling. When I look up and I see I've trained about 80 or 90 lawyers over the last 2 decades who've interned in my office, and some are out here just kicking butt. I'm proud to say, my light did a little tiny bit of something in their life. And I get thank you cards from them, I get emails, text messages, Facebook posts, and they remember black, white, or brown. People think it's all black, but I got a lot of white students who worked for me when I was at Stanford and Harvard, and they're just as thankful as anybody else.
Absolutely. Well, James, man, this has been amazing. There's so much I didn't even get to, but there were so many gems that you dropped, and I definitely would love to have you back on. Before we wrap up, is there anything that we could be on the lookout for? Any appearances? I know right now we're still doing things virtually, but what's the best way for folks that might be interested in hiring your firm to contact you? What would be the protocol to book a session with you?
That's our word of the week, by the way, protocol. Go to our website, walkerassociates.com. You can find me there. I'm on Instagram. I think I'm at James Walker Jr. ESQ. I don't use Instagram as much as Facebook. I know Facebook is my base. I'm James L. Walker Jr. on Facebook. And then upcoming, I want to convert a room here in my building to be a podcast. I love what you're doing here. And I want to have something where I can just go live, spur the moment. Lil Wayne sold his masters yesterday for $100 million. I want to go live and tell people what that means and educate artists on the power of publishing in your copyright and why his catalog is worth $100 million. I want to have a vehicle in my building here where we can do that. I would say the most urgent upcoming thing is for me to figure out this podcast and available vis-a-vis either Zoom or just have our own studio.
Absolutely. Content. Get the content out there. It doesn't have to be long. I've been doing videos once a week, 2-minute videos, and people in Wisconsin and Iowa, California, they're watching it, and you're just giving away your information. Like you said, be a blessing to others, and go givers gain. It comes back to you. Well, James, man, thank you for making the time to be on the show. And again, we'll invite you back again for a new segment, I'm sure.
Love you much, brother. Thank you for having me. I'm so proud of you, your family, RJ, Brittany. I mean, we both got the stories of raising these kids, Nance. Just proud to know you, brother. Really proud of you always. There's a picture behind you that's describing your interviews with 26. Yeah, thank you. You could just have that removed for our next interview. The Spirit of God is telling me divinely. All
right, brother. Well, thank you, man. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Mission Control. Until next time, this is Ramon Peralta from Peralta Design, and we launch brands.
Thank you for taking this journey with us. To learn more about Peralta Design and our work, go to www.peraltadesign.com and subscribe to keep up with the crew.